Welcome back to Timeless Sagas, the channel where we explore the vast tapestry of human history with a twist of humor and a pinch of modern relevance. Today, we're turning back the clock to dissect the rise and fall of one of history's most influential empires, the British Empire. So, grab a cup of tea, and let's dive into the story of how this global superpower went from ruling the waves to waving goodbye to its vast territories. At its height, the British Empire was the largest empire the world had ever seen, covering about a quarter of the Earth's land area and ruling over a fifth of the world's population. And like any good drama, the story of the empire's decline is filled with twists and turns, political intrigue, and a protagonist who just couldn't seem to quit while they were ahead. Our story begins around the turn of the 20th century, when Queen Victoria's reign was coming to an end, and the empire was at its peak. The sun never set on the British Empire, but the seeds of its decline had already been sown. One major factor, the rise of rival powers. Britain's industrial and naval supremacy was being challenged by countries like Germany and the United States. To put it in modern terms, there were some new kids on the block, and they wanted a piece of the imperial pie. Fast forward to World War I, and things took a turn for the worse. The war was a colossal drain on Britain's resources, both human and financial. The cost of fighting meant that Britain had to borrow huge sums of money, which weakened its economy and led to high inflation. By the end of the war, the empire was a shadow of its former self, a bit like that guy from high school who peaked too early and never quite managed to relive his glory days. After World War I, the world was changing rapidly. The winds of nationalism were blowing through Europe and beyond, and people in Britain's colonies started to question why they were still ruled by a tiny island thousands of miles away. One by one, countries like India and Ireland began fighting for their independence, and Britain faced a difficult choice: hold on to the empire with an iron grip, or let go and focus on rebuilding its domestic economy. In the end, Britain chose to let go, but not without a few bumps along the way. The 1920s and 30s saw the rise of independence movements in various parts of the empire, and Britain grappled with the delicate task of managing these uprisings. A prime example is the Indian independence movement, which eventually led to the partition of India and Pakistan in 1947, a momentous event that came with its fair share of bloodshed and turmoil. Now, as we all know, history has a habit of repeating itself, and in the case of the British Empire, World War II was the final nail in the coffin. The war once again drained Britain's resources and left the country in massive debt. After the war, Britain could no longer afford to maintain its vast empire, and the process of decolonization began in earnest. In the years that followed, Britain granted independence to many of its colonies, including Kenya, Nigeria, and the Caribbean nations. By the 1960s, the empire had been reduced to a handful of territories, and in 1997, when Hong Kong was handed back to China, the sun finally set on the British Empire for good. So, what can we learn from the rise and fall of the British Empire? Well, for one thing, it's a reminder that nothing lasts forever, not even the most powerful empires in history. It's also a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the desire for self-determination, as millions of people fought for their right to govern themselves and shape their own destinies. That's it for today's episode of Timeless Sagas. If you enjoyed this trip through history, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating stories from the past. Until next time, remember, history doesn't just repeat itself, it rhymes. So, keep an ear out for the echoes of the past, and you might just learn something about the present.